Hola, bienvenidos, and welcome to another episode of Tu Tía Bruja. I'm Bex, your host, and I want to take a moment. People always ask me, like, what's going on with the stars right now? Like, why are the stars tripping me out? So there's a lot of stuff going on with the stars right now, but the one thing I really would like to focus on, because it's been on my mind, Saturn's retrograde. And Saturn is the planet, like we talk about Mercury all the time, right? Because that retrograde happens very often. It's so close to the Earth. But Saturn is the planet that rules over just that, rules, restrictions, just your boundaries, your structural being, your focus. It's over your hard work, your work ethic, the things that you need to sort of do to be mature and function in the parameters that the world has created for us. This has been going on since June 4th, and it's going to continue until October 22nd. And it's especially on my mind right now because I'm going through the last, I got like a week or so left of my Saturn's return during Saturn's retrograde. Things are really kind of like clicking and making sense and making me realize like what's important in life, which is a nice feeling, right? May this be a reminder to a lot of you that if you haven't had the opportunity to really look at your natal chart, maybe you should, because I, for the longest time, looked at just the grid system that a lot of different apps provide. And it wasn't until I actually looked at it as the map that it really made sense to me, right? Because such a major placement in my chart was my sex life. And if you knew me before 30, I had a time in there. I had broken up with my partner, my long-term serious partner, and I think that we were unclear if we wanted the same things. And that was when I was 26. So it was before my Saturn's return started. And I very much, in the way of peaches, I think was trying to fuck the pain away. I dated a lot of cool people, a lot of terrible people, a lot of mediocre white men, mostly mediocre white men. I don't know. But it was, if nothing else, an experience because I got all of and a few more of the zodiac, which there are probably a lot more that I was not able to track down their information to do a quick search. And also shout out to my best friend because she helped me acquire some of the information that I could no longer seek out. And we were able to create like a grid system of sorts. Which, if you are someone who follows me or supports me on Patreon, you'll have access to this. The categories are amazing, above average, average, and terrible. Honestly, the biggest curse that the universe, I think, gave me is that they gave me the sexual energy and emotional intelligence at times of a frat boy. Like, what's that about, right? It's something that I've been working on, and it's something that I have been processing. Being a product of the 90s, like so many of us were encouraged to just give in to sexual energy and like no regrets. It's funny, Jennifer Coolidge of Stifler's mom and the woman in Legally Blonde, Paulette, recently came out and said that because of American Pie movies, there were at least 200 fellas that she had been able to have sex with. And just seeing all the comments of all of the individuals like judging her, and it's just like, let her live. Like, let her live her life. Let her have fun. She's a babe. Even to this day, she's a babe. Like, imagine in the late 90s, early 2000s, just catching her around. Had probably the best time in her life. The reason that I've been thinking so much, right, about former paramours and their zodiac signs and stuff is recently I'm in Mexico right now, which I escape to Mexico from time to time because sometimes it's like the pleasure of reconnecting with like the motherland and being able to like live in that space where part of me gets to thrive and be alive and exist in a way that it doesn't in the States is always a pleasure and a luxury and a privilege. But at the same time, I think it makes me feel like such an outsider. There are ways that I've become so accustomed to American traditions and cultures and just things like that. Like even simple things from like where to walk on the sidewalk to at times when I'm standing in the line waiting for the cashier to wave me over and it's like they're ready to take me instead of just like moving in. Just so many different cultural things, I think, that make me realize that it truly is that liminal space that J. Allen Cross calls it. We don't really fit in here. We don't really fit in there. But I like being here. I've been processing because, again, my Saturn's return is about to end. I'm about to hit 32. And so a lot of different things are making sense. Thinking about things in a way that are different now. But it was interesting. I had a nightmare. And this nightmare took me to a place where I had to be 26. Because 26, although it was a very awful year, it was also like, it was the best of times, the worst of times, because I had gotten really into boxing and my body was just like fierce, right? It was like I was thick, but it was like toned. I would say that was probably, if there was ever a summer in my life that was my hot girl summer, that was definitely that summer. I was in that body, in that, I think, time period in my life, because the outfit that I was wearing was one that was very prominent in my wardrobe at the time, which was this blue skirt with white stars on it that would give you Wonder Woman vibes, that I would pair with this black and white bodysuit with typically fishnets or some sort of tights and flats, what some kids would maybe call like twee fashion. I was wearing that particular outfit in the stream, and I was in a former paramour, I guess their parents' house. They were like hiding me. And, typically in dreams, I used to be really bad about just letting it play out, even though I was uncomfortable. But in recent years, something that I've become really good at too is that when I don't like the vibe or energy of a dream, I just shut it down. I'm like, okay, I know this is awkward. I know this is weird, but like, it's over. So that's what happened is like, I came to the realization that I'm like an adult woman and it's like, I'm sorry, this is weird. I'm sorry, this is uncomfortable. And I'm sorry that I came, but I'm going to go now because I don't want to be here. And so I went through the door and I woke up. At that point, I went to the restroom, drank some water, and I was like, why am I thinking about this? Like, why is this something that's even on my mind? And I realized that person had just had a major birthday, and I was like, oh, they got drunk and thought about me. But it got me thinking about just like all of the people that I dated and had like sexual relations with and where they would be on a chart. And based on the ones that I remember, the best being 2 May Tauruses, a March Pisces, a January Capricorn, an April Aries, and a November Sagittarius. Terrible being an August Leo, April Aries, an October Virgo, an April Aries, a June Gemini, a February Aquarius, a January Capricorn, and an October Libra. And you might be wondering, I thought you hit everyone in the zodiac. Yeah, there are some Cancers and a Scorpio. I just want to say, these are my findings. Like, if you want to send in an audio or like send me a message of you talking about like the best or worst experiences that you've had with various members of the zodiac, by all means, please do. I'd love that. And also let me know if like talking about sex magic is something that you find interesting, because it is very fascinating. Sexual energy, it's one of the most primal like energies that we carry. Amongst just me realizing different things about my sexual conquests and past, so to speak, I have been thinking about how this podcast has been pretty much going on a little bit short of the entirety of my Saturn's return. But I will say that the idea for the show definitely came from then, because I had gone to Mexico right before the pandemic. My half birthday's on Valentine's Day. Being back and realizing it's customary that if children, that you're related to, they'll call you a Thea. It's just easier for them to call you Thea, and it's like a sign of respect. So that's what they do. The realization that I was like, shit, I'm someone's Thea, and like really liking that idea and liking that concept. I love being able to show people different things and talk about things that either one might be really interesting to you, or two are just something that I'm talking about in my life, Sometimes it's interesting because I am truly of the belief that the universe speaks to us through other people or other things, or there's so many different types of divination and different types of communicating. We don't always take the signs as they're given to us as signs. Are you familiar with canticomancy? So canticomancy, and I could be pronouncing that wrong, is essentially divination by music. For example, like there's different forms that you could go about it. One method that I've read is you basically sit and you meditate with a candle and you ask a question. And then you can either put in headphones and like see what message you get from like the music. Or what I like to do, I have an iPod that I still use all the time. And so I will put it on shuffle, push play, and I listen to the song, but sometimes I'll listen to like a grouping of songs. I've always been very partial of working in threes. I don't know if that comes from like a Catholic upbringing of like the Holy Trinity. I don't know if it's just because it's a number I like. I don't know, but threes have always been very important to me. I will listen to those songs. I'll start to notice like a grouping or a significance. Anyway, that's what I do, and that works for me. Or if there's certain numbers that hold a special place in your heart that you would like to, maybe work with instead of 3, by all means, do that. Additionally, I want to circle back to the fact that I don't think I ever addressed that your Saturn's return starts at 29.5. If you were wondering, well, what's the duration? So it starts at 29.5 and it lasts 2.5 years. So by the time that you are 32, it is done or ending. Sometimes it lasts a little longer. Sometimes it's a little bit shorter. For the most part, that's what the time is. It's interesting because I feel like I have been coming to a lot of realizations, like a lot of things based on who I used to be are no longer the case, right? And I think that that's important for growth, right? Like we go through things that change our opinions and outlook. And I don't know, I think early on in this show, I was a lot more abrasive. And I think that for sure we should educate ourselves, figure out like what works for us. And I think the most powerful way to go about that is by like digging deep into your lineage and the things that give you power, channeling the ancestors of the blood, but not even just of the blood, because it's just like there are so many different types of ancestors. There are ancestors of the blood, of tradition, the land. I want to also take the time to shout out, this is like my little things that I love corner, right? I want to give a shout out to Samuel and Loretta of Ritual Craft Coven, because I wanted to take courses because I'm very fortunate that just trying to manifest the things that I want and being able to do that, even if it's not exactly in the way that I want, it always comes out working out for the best. And I really wanted a little bit of guidance, right? Just because I think that there are things that we gain, obviously, from like having teachers and elders, and every class has really resonated with something that's been going on in my life. It's been a wild ride as far as just like accelerating and improving my practice. The conversation about the ancestors is something that we covered. So I really wanted to say that if this is something that you're seeking out to just gain a little bit more knowledge, I highly, highly suggest it. Shout out to Francesca Hoagie, who is the host of the show Dear Franny. And full disclosure, I do edit this show. I really loved that she was able to explain something to me in a way where I was finally able to swallow it. Because I think that sometimes when people start talking to me about 5D, right, and how we have to access 5D, it's almost like very spiritual bypassy to me. But Franny was able to explain it to me in a way that made so much sense, that did not feel girl boss, gatekeep, or gaslighty. And so I really want to suggest that episode to everyone because I think, when we're trying to bring things into our life, it also really depends where we're at. Fun little side note, as I was recording the stuff about the Dear Franny episode, Franny texted me. I love that there are certain people in my life that I've just like, for whatever reason, were like linked. And whenever I think or talk about them, it's like they're like, here I am, what's up? Anyway, check out that episode. It's really good, and it really made me realize that like until we kind of almost think about the world delusionally, we get so caught in the present and the now and the things we don't want. And it's interesting because there's a local artist to St. Louis, and his name is Basil Kincaid. And, I remember a few years back ago, he had sort of talked about what helped him create his reality. And it was like the same thing, right? Like you have to just force yourself into living the life you want to live, having your mindset, thinking that you already have all the things that you want, and then they become yours. I think if you're going to be a witch, if you're going to be a bruja, and you want to create your own reality, you got to be a little delusional. So that's my thoughts on that. One of the things that I've been so fortunate to like create is so many partnerships and collaborations with people that I really admire, love, am inspired by, think they're doing really rad stuff out in their neck of the world. I was able to link up with Nyx, who is the creator of Spiritual Haunt Girl. She had another page that just got taken down, Your Spiritual Homegirls, and creates content that is more centered around Catholic brujas, but we love it. In the earlier, I think, renditions of this show, I was a lot more critical of Catholic brujas. I realized that at the end of the day, I'm just here to talk about what works for me. I don't need or want to create any enemies based on like what works for you or what works for, other people out in the world. The only thing that I just really want to scream from the rooftops, and I hope that people listen to me about, is the fact that magic does come from a place of social justice, and there is so much history and there's so much reasoning and why certain herbs and plants, different things were used. I think a really eye-opening moment for me was when I came to the realization that, especially hoodoo, because that's the perspective that I have, right? Like I have a large understanding of the United States because I've lived there. And also with knowing the history, right? We know hate crimes, lynchings happened a lot. When I finally understood why the ingredients that were put into hot foot powder, other than being used magically, right, for whatever purpose that you want to use it for, the fact that if a dog was following someone, potentially lead the hands of his murderers, the moment when it was a aha, where it was like, if you had hot foot powder, the idea that you could scatter a little bit and it could get something off your trail was a really clarifying moment for me. So this is to say that it's like whatever your practice consists of, I just really hope that it's something that you understand has so many deep meanings. And that's sort of why I've laxed my opinion on Catholicism, on cultural Catholics, and using the imagery in one's practice. So I'm really grateful for being able to collaborate with Nyx. She created a bunch of merch that say Haunt Girl Summer. And at this point in my life, I think I'm more about having a Haunt Girl Summer as opposed to a Hot Girl Summer. And we created a drink called the Gore and Lore. And it's inspired by the history of tequila and just all the different things that went into it. It has, I always work with Fortaleza. That's typically my go-to, or La Gritona. But for this one, I did Fortaleza, and I also used some of the Smirnoff tamarind vodka. And this isn't an ad. It's just what I used. The recipe's available on my Patreon. But if you support Nyx and buy one of the cups, she will send out a copy of the recipe. We're going to create a podcast episode. We just haven't gotten around to the details of that yet because life, I think, has been kicking us both in the ass. But when we do that, we will definitely mention a code if you're interested in that. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. Please tell a friend if this was helpful. And I can't wait till we meet again. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.